If you've ever played sports at any level, you've probably heard the old saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. It's one of those truths that hits harder the more you think about it. Talent might open the door, but discipline and effort are what keep it open. It's the difference between those who reach greatness and those who just dream about it. That lesson applies to every part of life, but it feels especially true when you look back at the meteoric rise and stunning downfall of Johnny Manziel. Once upon a time, Johnny was the golden boy of college football, a name that electrified stadiums, lit up highlight reels, and dominated every sports conversation. He wasn't just another promising young athlete, he was a phenomenon. Before he even turned 20, he had conquered college football, rewritten record books, and captured the imagination of fans everywhere. But the same fame that made him a legend would eventually be the force that tore everything apart. Johnny Manziel's story is one of extremes, the highest highs and the lowest lows. He became the first freshman ever to win the Heisman Trophy, a first-round NFL draft pick, and one of the most recognizable athletes in America. Yet, just 2 short years later, he was completely out of the league. For someone who had climbed so high, the fall came shockingly fast. To many, it looked like a simple story of wasted potential, a kid who let the fame go to his head. The public saw a young superstar who preferred the party life over practice, who craved attention more than success. But behind the headlines and the memes, the real story was far more complicated. Was it just a lack of discipline? Or was there something deeper? Something about the crushing weight of fame, expectation, and identity that pulled Johnny football apart from Johnny Manziel? That's what makes his story unforgettable. Because in a sport built on glory and pressure, few athletes have ever burned as bright or crashed as hard as Johnny Manziel. His alter ego, Johnny Football, became larger than life, and eventually larger than the man himself. What once made him magnetic became the very thing that destroyed him. But before the chaos and controversy, there was brilliance. To truly understand the fall, we have to go back to the beginning, the rise of a kid from Texas who turned college football upside down. From small-town star to college legend before the fame, before the headlines. Before Johnny Football became a household name, there was just a kid from Kerrville, Texas, who loved the game. Johnny Manziel wasn't born into stardom, he created it. In high school, he was a force of nature. Coaches couldn't stop talking about him. The coach of the only team to beat him his senior year once said, "He's the best playmaker I've ever seen. He's tougher to defend than Matthew Stafford. He's Brett Favre on a motorcycle." It sounded like hyperbole, but anyone who saw him play knew it wasn't. Johnny was pure chaos in cleats, unpredictable, fearless, and ridiculously skilled. He didn't just play football, he reinvented it, turning every snap into a highlight reel. Coming from an athletic family, he had confidence that bordered on swagger and competitiveness that refused to quit. When he committed to Texas A&M, he brought that same energy with him. But his start wasn't exactly smooth. Before taking his first snap, he was arrested for disorderly conduct. For most players, that might have been a career-stalling setback. For Johnny, it became motivation. Instead of letting it define him, he came back stronger. And once he hit the field, he didn't just meet expectations, he obliterated them. Texas A&M had just joined the Southeastern Conference, the toughest battleground in college football. They also brought in a new head coach, Kevin Sumlin, and an offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, whose up-tempo air raid offense was built for chaos and creativity. It was the perfect storm, and Johnny Manziel was the eye of it. When he finally earned the starting job as a redshirt freshman, he exploded. In his debut season, he racked up over 5,100 total yards, broke multiple records, and became the first freshman ever to win the Heisman Trophy. But the stats only told half the story. Watching Johnny Manziel play felt unreal, like watching someone break every rule of football and still make it work. When plays broke down, that's when he thrived. He'd escape collapsing pockets, twist away from defenders, and either throw a dart 40 yards downfield or take off running for a huge gain. It was like watching a video game character come to life, improvised, fearless, and unstoppable. His connection with wide receiver Mike Evans was legendary. Evans, a towering 6'5" target, became the perfect partner in crime. Whenever Manziel launched a desperate pass, Evans made it look like a masterpiece. Together, they terrorized defenses. And then came the game, the one that cemented Johnny Manziel's name in football history. November 10th, 2012. Texas A&M versus Alabama, the defending national champions. The game that no one thought the Aggies could win. But Johnny had other plans. He danced through the Crimson Tide defense like they were playing in slow motion, leading the Aggies to a stunning 29-24 upset in Tuscaloosa. That night, Johnny Football wasn't just a nickname. It was a brand, a movement, a phenomenon. By the end of the season, Manziel had broken almost every record in the book. The Aggies destroyed Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl, and Johnny turned in one of the most dominant performances the sport had ever seen. He wasn't just a football player anymore. He was a rock star in shoulder pads. But as the spotlight grew brighter, so did the shadows. The rise of Johnny Football. After his historic freshman season, Johnny Manziel became the most famous name in college sports. His celebrations, his swagger, his money gesture, everything about him screamed star power. The offseason turned into a circus. ESPN couldn't stop talking about him. Paparazzi followed him. He was photographed at NBA games, parties, concerts everywhere. He was living life at full throttle. And that was the problem. Fame had come fast, and suddenly every move he made was under a microscope. When reports surfaced that he might have been paid for autographs, a serious NCAA violation, it created a storm of controversy. The evidence never fully stuck, but the image of a reckless, arrogant superstar was already cemented. Still, the world wanted more Johnny Football. Texas A&M entered the 2013 season ranked 6th in the country, and the hype was insane. The Aggies were good, but everyone knew who the show was really about. Johnny's second year was explosive, but messy. The magic was still there, but the chaos was catching up. Defenses had adjusted, and every game felt like a battle between Johnny's improvisation and the opponent's preparation. The rematch with Alabama that season was one for the ages. Manziel threw for 562 total yards in an absolute shootout, but 2 costly interceptions turned a potential upset into a painful 49-42 loss. Statistically, he was brilliant again, but Texas A&M finished just 8-4. The magic that once felt invincible suddenly looked fragile. After a wild comeback win against Duke in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, Manziel declared for the NFL draft. Everyone knew it was coming, but few realized it would be the beginning of the end. The NFL, where the magic died. Johnny Manziel's NFL career didn't fail because he lacked talent. It failed because his magic didn't fit the mold. In college, chaos was his comfort zone. Broken plays were his playground. But the NFL doesn't reward chaos, it punishes it. Pro football is built on structure, precision, and discipline. And that was everything Johnny Manziel had spent his career avoiding. At Texas A&M, if his first read wasn't open, he'd scramble, improvise, and make something happen. In the NFL, that same instinct got him crushed. Scouts saw the warning signs. They praised his creativity but questioned his maturity, his preparation, his work ethic. The reports were brutally honest. Incredible playmaker, but dangerously undisciplined. When draft night came in 2014, the Cleveland Browns took him 22nd overall. The crowd erupted, cameras flashed, it felt like destiny. But behind the scenes, coaches were worried. Manziel walked in with the same swagger he'd always had. He told reporters he wasn't going to change who he was for anyone. It sounded defiant until the losses started piling up. His jersey became the top seller in the NFL before he ever played a game. The hype was unmatched. But when he finally made his first start, it was a disaster. Against the Bengals, he threw for just 80 yards and 2 interceptions. The Browns were humiliated. The legend of Johnny Football had collided with NFL reality. He wasn't ready physically, mentally, or emotionally. Instead of locking in and proving himself, he drifted further into the lifestyle that had made him famous. Parties, headlines, and excuses replaced film study and preparation. When he wasn't playing, he was partying. When he was supposed to be working, he was on social media. He checked himself into rehab, but the change didn't stick. Missed meetings, poor performances, and viral party videos followed. The Browns' patience ran out. In 2016, they cut him. At just 23 years old, Johnny Manziel's NFL career was over. Searching for redemption. After Cleveland, Manziel tried to find redemption. He said the right things, apologized for his mistakes, and promised to rebuild. He joined the Canadian Football League, hoping for a fresh start, but the results were underwhelming. The same flaws that haunted him in the NFL followed him north of the border: poor preparation, erratic play, and inconsistency. He later joined the short-lived Alliance of American Football, but the spark was gone. The flashes of brilliance that once defined him were rare, buried under years of disappointment. When the XFL made its return, there were rumors of one more comeback. But few believed it would change anything. The football world had moved on, and Johnny Manziel was no longer the prodigy everyone once believed in. His story had become a cautionary tale. Legacy: the lesson of Johnny Football. Could Johnny Manziel have made it in the NFL? Physically, absolutely. His talent was undeniable. His instincts were special. Few players could create magic the way he did. But football isn't just about talent. It's about growth, discipline, and commitment. And that's where Johnny fell short. He never evolved. The same style that made him unstoppable in college became his downfall in the pros. His game was built on chaos, not control. And in a league where every second counts, that kind of chaos doesn't survive for long. Off the field, the fame consumed him. Johnny Football became a brand, a lifestyle, a mask he couldn't take off. The parties, the headlines, the fame, it all fed into a cycle that blurred the line between the player and the persona. In the end, the same spotlight that made him famous became the one that burned him out. His story isn't just about wasted potential. It's about how fame can twist reality, how success can arrive too soon, and how identity can get lost in the noise. Johnny Manziel had the talent to be great, but he never learned how to sustain greatness. He lived for the thrill of the moment, never realizing that moments fade and that the hard work behind the scenes is what makes legacies last. As that old saying goes, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And for Johnny Manziel, that quote isn't just a lesson, it's his legacy. The rise and fall of Johnny Football will always be remembered, not just because of the magic he created, but because of the tragedy that followed. He was proof that talent alone isn't enough, and that sometimes the greatest opponent isn't on the field. It's within yourself.